Welcome to SCHUMANN Insights. We are in SCHUMANN's London office today. I'm going to talk to you about the latest risks we see in credit management at the moment. The world's obviously been very unpredictable, and we've seen a number of shocks in recent years that have all impacted businesses. To start, obviously, the worst of the pandemic seems to be behind us now. At least we hope so. And initially, obviously, businesses thought the pandemic and lockdowns would bring a lot of insolvencies and a lot of disruption. Obviously, lots of people saw disruption. However, insolvencies have remained low, actually below historic levels. This was because governments provided a lot of support to businesses for wages, financing, loans, etc. This really helped companies weather the storm. On top of that, banks also provided funding to businesses. There was money, low interest rates, so it was relatively easy for companies to get through this period. We all hoped, of course, that 2022 would have a better start and we'd have a bit more of a normal year. But obviously there was another shock that's impacted all of us, and that's the war in the Ukraine. A lot has been said about this, of course. It's a war on European soil, very severe event, a horrible event for the people of the Ukraine. It's brought a lot of disruption and damage locally. However, there's a wider fallout as well. We all know Russia and Ukraine are big providers of food and grains and fertilizers. They are quite connected in the world, so it's brought extra disruption on top of obviously a very long list of sanctions for Russian companies that are very difficult to navigate. And the outlook remains very unclear as well. How long is it going to take? What will the effect be? And it's just caused another shock to the system. We're actually a little bit in a perfect storm in 2022. It's not just the Ukraine, but we're also seeing very high inflation as well, and some disruptions to supply chains, some of them still stemming from the pandemic in China and lockdowns. But also, obviously, it's been fairly easy to shut down factories, flights and trade routes when lockdown started. But it's much harder to get everything restarted again and get everything running. So this has really caused some stretches for companies and problems, and has brought additional cost. Coming back to inflation, inflation in most countries is now as high as most of us can remember. We were quite used to very stable levels of inflation and relatively low levels in most of the Western world, but we're now seeing almost double digits. And that's very difficult for companies to manage, not just because we haven't done it recently, but also because it impacts a business across the board. As a company, you need to decide your prices. You need to look at your costs, your wages, but also at your credit lines. Every shipment you make, even for the same amount, will have a higher value, so we'll put a higher pressure on your credit lines. Predicting and forecasting, budgeting, all have become more difficult to do as well. So it's a very uncertain time for companies with some new challenges. So where does technology come into all of this? Technology is going to be more important than ever at the moment to deal with this really unpredictable world and the trends we are seeing. Companies are going to have to be very efficient in a world where prices are rising and staff are difficult to get, and where there's a lot of pressure on margins, credit lines, etc. Productivity is key. It's very important, and technology can bring these efficiencies, of course, and can really help companies look at the way they do things and preserve margins as well. The other thing that's important is that the financial markets have enough competition and enough players in them to make sure that everyone who's buying financial services gets the best product. And technology can help new providers enter the market. It will make it lots easier to set up a credit insurance business or a financial business if there is a financial system for them that they can use, don't have to develop, and can deal with data, information, processes, sign-offs, etc. So technology is a very key component, and we've already seen that actually in recent years when we've all moved to working from home. working with Teams, working with Zoom, and doing a lot of our processes online, which has brought efficiencies. And the pandemic has pushed us to do this. And we really need to now look at other solutions as well to see how are we doing things, can we do it better, because the pressures are there and we're in an unpredictable world. We don't know what's going to happen, so we need to really look closely at what we do and how we do it.